Hello there and welcome to another video and another lost media video, or in this case lost segments video, and it's another Top Gear video. For this video we're going to look through Top Gear's lost segments. Now Top Gear had filmed loads of different segments, loads of different challenges, and we've seen them all before, and there are some, however, that were filmed and or planned that never really reached the TV screens, or at least some were revitalized into something completely different. In this video I'm going to go through each and every one of the known lost segments or known lost moments from the show. This is only going to revolve around the Clarkson era. There are obviously lost segments in the more modern era and in old Top Gear as well, but I'm just not going to include those. This is the Clarkson, May and Hammond era plus Jason Dawes, and really it's interesting looking at some of these ideas, especially the ones that did get revitalized. So without further ado, let's have a look at Top Gear's lost segments. One of the first things filmed for the 2002 series revival was an M3 review and test. Whilst it would eventually be reviewed for Series 2 Episode 2, an earlier road test appears to have existed at one point in time for Series 1. This is due to the fact that Stig can be seen driving a blue example, an RX-02TYD, around the test track throughout the introduction sequence of the show's very first episode. It is the only car from the sequence which does not have a corresponding review later in the series. At least very part of it, a power lap was recorded, and there's no real particular reason why this was cut. Presumably it was because of time management, because they couldn't just have loads of segments in one go. They had to obviously manage their time and have pick out the best ones. The fire engine challenge was a challenge similar to the police car and ambulance challenge, where the presenters would have modified fire engines to their own aspects and drive around and potentially put out a fire or something of that nature. It's not necessarily clear what this idea was going to lead into. We know it to have reached the ideas and scripting stage and to have at least had a practice film made. But according to Richard Porter, the idea was scrapped because they couldn't come up with enough materials or jokes for it. He basically describes it's very easy to make jokes about policemen or about ambulances and doctors and all that, but with firefighters it was a little bit trickier. And there's a potential reason that health and safety got involved, which meant that the fire engine challenge just couldn't come about. Interestingly enough, this idea would somewhat come back in the Grand Tour, where in an episode where the crew would go off script, James May would make his own fire engine and attempt to practice with it. In a way, the idea did live on, but it never got made. One of the most infamous cut segments was nicknamed the Unfunny Bus. In several episodes in the background of the test track, you may see a large red double-decker bus. This bus was used in a segment where the presenters would modify a bus to improve the average bus journey. The idea in the production office was very positive and everyone seemed very excited for it. However, once filming began, disaster struck. By improving the bus, they created an atrocity featuring the view enhancer, which was a roller blind with a picture of a sunset on it, an annoying music stopper system, which was a pair of scissors behind a breakable glass, which you could use to cut the headphones cord or a teenager beside you, and the banisher of bad smells, which was just a can of deodorant on a string. This dreadful creation was hated by James May and Richard Hammond, with James dubbing it the Unfunny Bus, creating a little poem to describe his misery. They hated driving in it and hated filming it, and the atmosphere was incredibly toxic all around. Everything was a complete disaster, and as such, the segment was never aired. In a set of unfortunate events that was going to be a race between an unknown model of car and a nuclear submarine, they would race across the coast of Florida to an unspecified goal. However, as soon as filming began for the race, the submarine broke down, and because it could not be fixed easily, the race was cancelled. The time and cost of travelling meant that the crew were stuck in America for a week, and the event couldn't be replicated due to budgetary reasons. Here's an idea that was cut but eventually morphed into something else. Now tell me, does this idea sound familiar? The Texas Smart Car Challenge was an idea during the early days of the 2002 revival, whereby one of the presenters would go to Texas in a tiny pink smart car, which would have been decorated in highly liberal slogans. Sound familiar yet? The idea was scrapped because of the costs of doing it at the time, and obviously time management, for you see they would need to sacrifice one of the presenters and a huge chunk of production to travel to Texas for just one small segment. However, the idea would be regenerated into the infamous US special, where all three presenters would decorate their own vehicles or each other's vehicles in slogans and drive through Alabama, where they would be chased out by rednecks. Like the fire engine segment, the original idea wasn't to be, but it inspired a future idea, so in a way it did sort of return, just not how it was originally intended. This is another infamously cut segment, as it has the most footage available dedicated to it, which is a shame because it looked like a really cool idea. Here, a 1994 Fiat Panda was turned into a makeshift armoured car on a budget. Billed as Full Metal Bonnet, the segment was fully filmed and even published in the Top Gear magazine as something to look forward to for Series 7, and even a few frames of it appeared in Series 7 opener. In the available footage, we know that the armoured Fiat was to be set on fire, smashed through a wall, shot at, tipped over, blown up by explosives, and smashed into by other cars. The reason for this being cut was actually three different reasons. The first, it was deemed boring by production because it felt repetitive. The second was during editing there were several glaring errors and continuity mistakes created as a result of the trimming down poorly filmed and poorly lit scenes, as well as in uninteresting moments. And the final reason was that the idea felt too similar to the famous Toyota Hilux destruction in all sorts of ways. Like the fire engine and the Texas Smart Car, this idea was revitalized in a similar segment in which a Range Rover was modified into a makeshift Bond car for the straight-to-DVD release Top Gear at the movies. For either the fourth or fifth series, it was decided that Richard Hammond was to film a power test of a car which he took a liking to. However, it turned out that fellow host Jeremy Clarkson had already driven all the cars that the show was interested in, and so he settled for a convertible version of the then current BMW 6 Series. The resulting road test was deemed too boring to air and thus was cut. For Series 5, James May was going to modify a Rover Metro into a makeshift plane. The car would have been stripped down and given wings from engineering students. The only problem was the car's drivetrain was front-wheel drive, meaning the second the car got any lift, the wheels would stop providing power and the car would just bounce back down, leading to little footage of worth outside of pointless wheelies. They then attempted to modify the vehicle so that it had rear-wheel drive. However, health and safety got in the way and the idea was forced to be abandoned. For Series 7, Jeremy was to drive a Pontiac Solstice. However, a major problem occurred. The vehicle was not available in the UK at the time. To make matters worse, Jeremy absolutely hated the car and found the whole segment to be disappointing. Although initially hyped and frequently mentioned in the news segments throughout Series 8, when the time came for a road test car a series later, Jeremy Clarkson was underwhelmed after realising the new car was little more than a rebodied Elise. Originally intended as a Proton, although deemed passable according to Richard Porter, the segment became natural casualty once an excess of content for the series had already been filmed. A small fragment of this road test appeared in the trailer for Series 9, however. All the presenters wanted to play around with beach buggies, especially after a brief stint in Series 6 using one. But this time there'd be a twist. They would drive it off-road. Here, Richard Hammond would have driven around a Volkswagen Beetle model beach buggy. However, when filming began, it turned out the buggy could not function off-road, and kept getting stuck, ironically, on a beach. They changed wheels and they tried filming again. The buggy then broke down. The segment was completely abandoned. Interestingly, the beach buggies would finally appear in an off-road setting in the Grand Tour Special. As a result of the series' hiatus and Clarkson being fired, several episodes were canned and segments lost. Of course, in the grand finale we do see some of these segments, but 3 in particular were lost completely. The first was a Golf R versus WRX STI track test, where Richard was to compare the Subaru WRX STI to the Volkswagen Golf R. This would have been in episode 8, and featured alongside the classic car segments. The other was Luxury Limousine Track Test. Here, Jeremy was expected to review a trio of luxury limousines, one of which was a Bentley Continental Flying Spur. This would have been featured in episode 9. Episode 10 would have featured a Porsche 911 GTS and a Rolls-Royce Rife, but no other information is known about those segments. In terms of celebrity segments, in the cancelled episode 8, Gary Lineker would have been the guest star, episode 9 would have been Henry Cavill, and episode 10 would have featured Keanu Reeves. As we all know, in 2006, during filming for Series 9, Richard Hammond was in a near-fatal crash when driving the jet-powered Vampire Dragster. However, did you know that the original idea for the segment was for James May to drive a jet-powered car? As he was Captain Slow, the idea was that he'd drive something extremely fast against his own will. However, James had a conflict with filming something else at the time, and as such, because of how costly it was to have a jet-powered dragster on the track and to do nothing with it, Hammond was thrown in. This also meant a quick script had to be made/changed, whereby Hammond would be breaking the record rather than James becoming fast against his own will, which explains why the segment feels less put together in the final cut that we see on TV, aside from the obvious crash. And that is it. What Top Gear segments do you wish were on screen? Do you think there should be a lost Top Gear segment DVD, as Richard Porter once demanded? Obviously, that's never come to be, but it would be interesting to see some of these lost segments and see what they were actually like. Obviously, some of them never actually got filmed, and a lot of them got cancelled in the meantime, but I do find some of the ones that were filmed and the history behind them to be interesting. The Unfunny Bus and the Armoured Fiat, even though that obviously never came to be on screen, we obviously do know that they were filmed, and it would be interesting to see how bad or how good they were. It depends. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.